Welcome to the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles. My name is Rich Mayfield, number 1211, the president this year. I have the honor tonight of talking to Knight Campbell, our guest, and actually fellow alumni of the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis. Welcome, Knight. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate the invitation.
So, Adventurers Club of Los Angeles, we do a lot of adventure stuff. Your business is adventure, right?
It's a hard burden to bear, yes.
Yeah.
I have to go climb mountains and canoe and hike and get outside a lot, yeah.
Sounds like a very, very stressful place to be.
Yeah, it's very stressful.
Why don't you start us off with where'd you come from, right? How'd you get into outdoor adventure
Yeah,
stuff?
So just down and dirty, grew up in Virginia, backwoods. Got a lot of time running around pretending I was a soldier or whatever, Lord of the Rings, swinging sticks. Loved being outside as a kid. And then just grew through that, went to the Naval Academy in 2006 when I graduated. My now wife and I came back out to California, and we tried to climb Mount Whitney, and we failed miserably.
So you just went for it? You got to get the...
no clue. Yeah, I was like, I would climb lots of mountains in Virginia. So
a little bit.
How hard can Whitney be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were just recent grads, so we rented crampons. We're like, oh, all right, cool, we need crampons, but they only cover the heels on our boots. There are no toe points because those are the cheaper ones. And we're like, well, we can save some money without the toe points. Turns out you want toe points like halfway up the ice chute on Mount Whitney. So we failed. Long story short, fell in love with climbing mountains, that challenge, and that, love-hate. I remember coming back down, and this is a personal growth edge of just every single person on the trail is like, oh, did you make it to the top? And you're like, no.
Can you tell by my face?
Look at me right now.
I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. So, in Whitney, of course, is the highest point in California in the lower 48. And so there's a high pointer club, people who try to climb the high point of all 50 states. I think we have 11 to go still. And we've got 2 kids, and we're like, well, do we have to start over? I don't know.
So wait, you're only 11 away, so you've done 39?
Yeah.
39 and
that's
the
a lot of
highest
math
point?
to do, but yes.
What's the highest point in Virginia?
Yeah, Mount Rogers.
What is it?
Like 5,000 something? Yeah, about a mile. It's crazy. It's great. No crampons required.
So some of them is easy to knock off a few.
Yeah, but the thing, some of them seem easy, like Kansas, you would think would be pretty simple.
Yeah.
Sunflower Peak or Sunflower Point or something like that. It's like a hour-and-a-half drive on clay roads to get there, and it thunderstormed the whole way. So it was like driving on ice.
And what is the mountain in Kansas?
Yeah,
is it like a cinder cone volcano or something?
It's just like a little fenced-in spot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
That's a check in the box for sure.
Yeah, it's a check in the box. We actually spent some time in the parking lot for Florida's High Point looking for the trailhead, and we realized
I think I might have been to that one. What's it called in Florida?
Yeah, like Britain something, I think. But yeah, the sign is the parking lot is the high point.
Like 100 feet or something like that?
Yeah, there's no trailhead.
Yeah.
Anyway, that really got us into, you have to build skills. You climb Mount Rainier, you have to learn how to travel on glaciers, you climb the high point of Montana, where we've been 100 yards away from the summit. Had to turn around because we were just uncomfortable on rock, so we had to learn how to rock climb. So it just built these skills over 10 so years that we were working on this, still are, I guess.
So Whitney started you off, though.
Yeah, it kicked us off.
So you said recent grad. So this was like 2007, 2008 range?
2006, yeah, right in that basket leave you get when you leave.
So you left the Naval Academy.
Yeah.
Where were you going after the Naval Academy, by the way?
Yeah, I was going to flight school, and my wife was going to Marine Corps, so going to TBS. That's right.
So you had a little bit of leave, and you're like, yeah, we'll go climb Whitney.
Let's just climb Whitney. And my wife will laugh at this. Like, I'm sneaky about it, because she'll be like, that's a terrible idea. We don't even know what crampons are. And I'm like, why don't we just start? We'll just start, and if it feels good, we'll keep going. If it doesn't, we can turn around.
Perfectly acceptable way to be.
Exactly.
I feel like you can always turn around.
Exactly. Of course, in my heart, I'm like, well, once we start, we can't quit.
But you did. You did, right?
Yeah, we did.
Well, that's interesting because I'm sure in your business you talk about summit fever a lot.
Yeah.
I think the ability to resist that and kind of know when you've been licked.
Yeah.
That's an important part, right?
Super important. And not even that, just framing the goals. Like if you frame the goal as getting to the top, I don't want to climb with you. And
Yeah.
I know a guy, he's climbed a bunch of Himalaya peaks, really talented climber, and he's like, I've made it to like 25% of the summits that I tried for.
Wow.
And that clicked for me, like, okay, like the people you really want to climb with are not the people who are like, I'm going to make it to the summit no matter what. It's the people who are like, I'm going to come back alive to make it to the summit one day. Yeah.
So you started off, so you came out of Naval Academy, and everybody comes out of Naval Academy being shit hot, right?
Oh, yeah.
You graduated, so you don't have to worry anymore.
Yeah. We don't know how to pay our bills or make food or,
But you've got that one gold bar and you're ready to go, right?
That's right, yeah.
So then you get your butt kicked on Whitney.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that there is a Navy career in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
So what'd you do in the Navy?
Yeah, I went flight school, spent 10 years flying, and that kind of led me back to where I am now, honestly.
What'd you fly?
60 Bravos, yeah, which there's a nice example of one in the Museum of Aviation in Pensacola, so right up in the front. Yeah.
So yeah, and that we had a conversation earlier that the online people weren't privy to. That's not a tailhook, right? So I guess you're not going to tailhook convention,
no,
right?
not going to tailhook. Yeah.
What do you guys have your own club that you keep the go fasters out of, or what?
We it's a secret. Yeah.
It's a secret.
Yeah. I can't disclose the location in this
Very
company.
cool.
Confirmed or denied.
Yeah. Yeah.
So eventually you got out of the Navy and you started this business. So tell me about what you do for a living.
Yeah, so we take business leaders on expeditions, usually 2-night, sometimes longer, all over the place. Canoeing, backpacking, rock climbing. A lot of people who come out with us is their first time ever. And we dig into MBA level curriculum talking about decision making. You mentioned Summit Fever. We would look at that as facets, as human factors in decision making, and talk about, well, how does that apply to business? Or is there a quarterly number that could be viewed as Summit Fever, things like that. So it's a blast. It's intellectually stimulating. We have amazing guides, and we're always just having good conversations around campfires, or sometimes not. We leave no trace. People are pretty shocked when you're like, yeah, we're not going to have a fire tonight. Like, what? I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The camp. What is your little aside? What is your take on the campfire when you're out?
I grew up in Virginia, whereas you make campfires. And I also, full transparency, would carry a cast iron skillet and like this giant,
You're killing me.
Pink like Walmart sleeping bag. I mean, my pack was like 70 pounds. And so, yeah, that was my definition of camping. And of course, we'd have a campfire. We'd hack down trees all around us. And I'm not proud of that. Now, we're going to Joshua Tree, where hacking down a Joshua Tree means a lot more than a scrub in Virginia that's going to grow back in 10 years. And,
right.
So, yeah, I'm shocked by how little the campfire matters unless it's really cold.
Yeah.
When you're in conversation with people, sitting in a circle, even if you put a little Lumi light, especially if you have the flicker setting, there's something about the flicker, I don't know. People will just naturally gravitate in and start like acting like they're warming themselves up around the fire.
So what's
the conversation? It's the people, really. It's not the fire.
That's pretty interesting. I think a lot of people do expect campfires. I've been out and I've been like, no, I'm not starting a fire.
Yeah.
And they get really hurt.
Oh yeah.
About that. You're like, what? It's like a hurricane out here. We're not starting a fire. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So do you find that when you're in California, like you are a lot, most of the expeditions you do California based, or do you kind of go out east?
We do California, East Coast. We do some West Virginia. You
do? You go out all the way to the East Coast?
Yeah. It's I miss it,
Yeah.
It's hard to admit that, but I miss the seasons and the green. Yeah, we do Shenandoah, and we go up to Pacific Northwest too. But yeah, people get it in California. In California, we're like, yeah, we don't want to burn down the forest. And they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Other places, maybe not as much.
Because I feel like other places don't have a big as problem with forest fires as we do.
Right. And a lot of places like Shenandoah, you can have fires in certain places. Even the Olympics up in Washington State, if you're below a certain level, you can have a fire. So.
Because they have water.
Because they have water.
Yeah.
So it's all about what's the impact. So you talk about teaching business leaders, it's like, well, what's the impact? Are you doing something short term right now? Are you burning a fire because it feels nice and it's going to have a negative impact for 10 years? Maybe not.
So it sounds like the big driver behind these is using outdoor lessons as parallels to business lessons. Is that kind of what you're trying to do?
That's it. Yeah, we talk a lot about experiential learning. So Kolb's experiential learning cycle, which just really fast. You have an experience, you reflect on it. Hopefully, most people don't. We just experience a lot of stuff over and over, and then you need to abstract it. So you have an experience, you reflect on it, and you're like, okay, I've learned from this experience in this domain. If you can transfer that to another domain, the learning is going to stick better. You know, if you have an experience, say rock climbing, and you push through fear, you find a way to get through fear rock climbing, that applies anywhere. If you are afraid of, going in front of your board for a quarterly meeting, or you're afraid of having a hard conversation with an employee, or you have to fire someone, or whatever that uncomfortable conversation is, the fear is the same physiologically. So you can use that lesson that you learned rock climbing if you have good guides to pull that out for you.
So you're out there trying to stress these guys.
Oh yeah.
And see and kind of teach them how to react. It's not a low stakes scenario.
Yeah, we took a bunch of GMs out to Catalina, and about day 3 of a 5-day trip, one of them's like, "So your job's to take people outside and F with them." I'm like, "Yeah, that's basically my job."
Yeah.
When you put it like that, it's pretty.
You learned that in the military. That's where you learned that in Annapolis. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I imagine there was a time, and I hope you have a story that is like. I imagine that you had a CEO out, or someone, a high level exec, that's just completely out of his comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Tell me if this is tracking, and tell me if I'm reminding you of a story. So there's some CEO, I'm just guessing, that is completely out of his comfort zone, and you just see the light bulb turn on in his head. Can you give us one of those stories?
Yeah, it's funny because the CEOs, like, they're never uncomfortable, right?
Was that true or no?
No,
because
it's not true.
I mean, some people, they're naturally comfortable and all, like, they just handle stress extremely well.
Yeah. So what's interesting, we call them crux adventures. We're Cairn Leadership. We call these adventures crux adventures, and the crux is the hardest part. It's the heart of the matter. In climbing, it's the move or the sequence in a climb where once you get through that, you're like, okay, I'm going to make it to the top. And I don't think the crux is always physical. So a lot of CEOs, like, they're very competent. A lot of people, especially at that level, they don't come out if they don't think they can succeed in the outdoors. I think there's a fear of failure, a fear of vulnerability there, where they're like, well, I've never rock climbed before, I'm not going to climb in front of my team, that's a different story, a different problem. I think the people who do have the courage to do that get a lot out of it. But the CEOs who, they get out there and they're surprised by the emotional crux, or the being vulnerable with their team, telling them how they feel about something, or sharing something from their past. I see that much more with CEOs, with executives, because typically they're not going to put themselves in a place of vulnerability knowingly. And
do you ever break a CEO?
So
I mean, you know what it means to break a person, right? You're in the Navy.
Yeah.
Do you ever break someone? Or do you always break, like every trip? Yeah, I break a guy every trip.
We try to break everyone a little bit, but just the right amount. We always say in the beginning, when we start the adventure, we say, we hope that there's a moment that you wish you hadn't signed up. And everybody's like, wait, what? And I also add, like, hopefully not the last moment, because that's not great for marketing. But yeah, a lot of leaders need control. And I'll say, like, I'm right there. You're a leader. You're like, I want to control. I want to know what's going on. I want to be in control, see what's coming down the pipeline. And so the moment that a lot of people lose it, so to speak, is on a rock climb. They'll climb up. They're like, this is way easier than I thought. This is great. I'm like, awesome. Now just let go. I'm going to lower you. And they're like, what? Like, let go?
Yeah.
Of the rock? You're like, yeah, I can't lower you if you're holding on, right? It's just this, like, oh my gosh, I have to let go. But it's a great lesson. And of course, their team's like down below, like, yeah, you should let go. Yeah.
That's really interesting, because when you're rock climbing, like, I've done a little bit, I wouldn't consider myself a rock climber, but that's the only moment where you know that you're truly safe.
Right.
Is when you let go and
Right.
someone and your belayer, whatever you call it, your belayer catches you, and you're like, oh, I have been safe this entire time.
Yeah.
Because, when I've climbed, as you're climbing up, you're like, I understand I have this rope, and that's great, but I also do not want to fall.
Right.
because I'm not 100% sure that I will be caught. And then
Yeah.
when you do let go, you understand that you've been safe the whole time.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that that's a
It's
point.
the moment. It's the moment
Yeah.
of letting go, I think, is pretty scary.
It is.
You cognitively know you're safe, but emotionally you're surrendering control to someone else. Yeah.
I for sure remember my hands being like way too cramped. Like I've
Yeah.
you know, the death grip on the rock
Yeah.
or whatever, and you're like, I don't need to hold on that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Over gripping. It happens to the best of us.
So that moment is the most common crux, is when they have to push back and.
Yeah, I see that
Caught.
a lot, and I see people have their limits, what they think. Yeah, and I tell people, like, we're not going to ask you to do anything more than just a little bit more than you think you can. And people are like, oh, great, that sounds good. I'm like laughing inside because I'm like, well, that's impossible. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little more than you think you can. But yeah, I see people give up, and you just sit there for a little bit. You're like, great, like just take a break, and they breathe or whatever they need, and they keep going. And I think there's this euphoric moment of people pushing through that. Like, okay, I gave up. Whoever's down below didn't just lower me. Like, okay, great, I'm gonna let you down. They're like, no, take a break. I bet you can do this. And there's a lot there too. Like,
Does that take a lot of patience?
It's my favorite part. Honestly.
Right.
So yeah, people are always ask, well, what's your favorite adventure? And they're all unique and fun to me. But I like going and climbing a single pitch rock in Joshua Tree isn't like an incredible adventure to me. It's about the people. So it doesn't really matter where we are. It's that moment. It's
About seeing that breakthrough.
right. So it's not like, oh geez, I have to hold on to the rope for another 10 minutes while this person sorts it out. It's like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. There are going to be tears. There's going to be cheering. It's going to be a good moment.
You ever get bored with that payoff?
Not yet. Not yet.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. If I do, we'll climb higher things. I don't know.
I just pushed him a little harder.
Yeah. You know what's funny? We took a group of executives to Joshua Tree, and there were only like 4 people, and both guides were certified to take people multi-pitch, which means like 400-foot climbs, not just climb up and get lowered off. You like climb up, stop, climb up more. And we're like, do you all want to go multi-pitch? Like, we could do that today. And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? None of them knew what that meant. They're just like, oh, I thought we were going to climb a couple times, like we're going to climb 400 feet up a rock face.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny, yeah.
So what do you do in between those pitches? You just kind of hang out, or are you in a safe spot? You have to be on rope, or
yeah, just hold on really tight. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you're in a
I don't know if you're like on a shelf where you can unclip.
Well, no, typically you'd keep people clipped in, but I think that can be scary too. We build anchors out of what we call cams, and they're all rated at like 15 kilonewtons a piece. So the anchor that we build can hold like 4,000 pounds of force, but they're these little tiny things that go in the rocks. And if you don't know that, you're just like, what, you want me to just lean back on this, and then you're going to leave, and you'll tell me when to climb up. And it's like funny every time. I'm like, yeah, that's basically just hanging out.
So it sounded like you started. I know there's a little bit of difference and a little bit of crossover, but you started hiking mountains like Whitney.
Yeah.
Whitney's a hike.
Yeah.
You don't ever have a harness, right?
Yeah, for the hiking route. True.
Yeah. So how did you get into the rock climbing aspect? Was that an offshoot of? Do you kind of need the rock climbing to push people?
No. We do a lot of backpacking, and like I say, a lot of people who come out with us have never backpacked before. They're like, "What's this tent about?" Or "Animals gonna eat me," which is totally valid if you haven't camped before.
Right.
Every time anyone who's camped in this room, when the wind hits your tent, you're like, yeah, that's definitely a mountain lion. Like, there's no way that's not a bear that's about to maul me. And you're like, no,
right.
No, it's just wind. So there's plenty of challenge in anything we do, really.
How far do you normally take these people on backpacking routes?
Yeah, so we just did a trip up in the Olympic Mountains in Washington, and they are steep. So we had some pretty strong people. I'm like, we're going to do 4 miles a day. And they're like, okay.
What was your vertical on that?
Yeah, like $4,000.
4,000 over
Yeah.
4 miles?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Just gnarly. And so they came in like, oh, geez, 4 miles. I'm like, just wait. So yeah, you get the challenge from that for sure. But rock climbing is more immediate, and people just don't believe they can do it. Like people walk into backpacking and like, okay, like maybe this is gonna be hard, but I'm just gonna grin and bear it, get through it. Yeah, and rock climbing, like people are like, no, I'm not gonna rock climb. Those are my favorite people. I'm like, great, we should talk.
So do you build the trip for the people that sign up, or do you build the trip and then people sign up and I might want to go backpacking, or I might want to go kayaking or whatever?
Great question. So we do open enrollment where we've built the trip and people sign up. We do customize like what leadership topics we talk about on that. So we send out a survey and people say, decision making or mission, vision, values, or communication, whatever is important, and we customize a curriculum. If we're working with a organization or company, then we customize everything. So where it is, how hard it is, what we talk about.
So a company will come in and say, we want you to take 10 people, and you kind of work with them to figure out what that's going to look like.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. Any takers out there?
Yeah, let's go.
Anybody?
This crowd, they're like, we do that on our weekends already.
We got some that are definitely like, oh yeah, we'll see you up there. We'll walk past you and wave hi.
Nice. I love it.
But that's pretty cool. So you also mentioned that you have a couple kids. I'm interested in that because I got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
So you just had some kids.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have them, but yeah.
Yeah, you're somehow involved.
I was involved, yeah.
Yeah. Is this a picture? This is a picture of.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is our first backpacking trip with both kids.
And how old are your kids right now?
10 months and almost 4.
And when was this picture taken?
Oh, maybe 2 months ago. Yeah.
So we're talking about like an 8-month-old and a 3 and change.
Yeah, and so we were smart about it. We just picked a 2-mile trail.
Yeah.
Golden Trout Lake up in the Sierras. And you'd think like being a guide and everything, I'd look at the elevation profile, but I didn't really. And it's like 2,500 feet of elevation gain. So it was basically like climbing, like rock climbing. Like I was like, should we just rope up for this? Yeah. And of course, the 4-year-old's like, put me on your chest, Dad. So I'm carrying her, and it was just brutal. We lost the trail. We got stuck in a boulder field. I'm trying to like boulder hop through these giant boulders
with kids. With
my kid like on my chest, trying not to hit her head on the boulders.
So you have some takeaways from that experience?
Yeah, check the elevation.
Yeah.
No, it was awesome. With kids, you just got to understand, like you're not going to sleep. That's when you're out camping with them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I got mom and dad in the room with me. Like, let's go. People's elbow right on my face all night. I took her camping. This cutie, just saw on 5 San Onofre. I'd finally fall asleep. She somehow unzips the tent, grabs a handful of dirt, and rams it into my mouth. Why did you do that? Yeah.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
You should have heard that zipper open it up. She could have escaped or something.
Well, yeah, I'm going to start doing that for our clients. I think that's a good crux moment.
Yeah.
You wake up to Mike.
Just unzip their tent and shove dirt in their mouth.
No, I don't think that would be the moment they wish they hadn't signed up for.
Yeah,
sure.
that's not the moment you want. You want it to be more impactful than you messing with them.
Maybe, yeah. But what do you do with that?
And this is your youngest, you in a hammock? Where is this?
Yeah, we're, I think in Idlewild. Yeah.
It's a good spot.
It's a beautiful spot. A little treasure in SoCal, for sure. The climbing there is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The people who kind of started climbing Yosemite climbed there first, So
when was the last time you were out on an expedition?
Yeah, so I just finished a guide course up in Washington State doing alpine guide stuff, which was pretty cool. We went to the Twin Sisters Range. If anyone wants to do a backcountry kind of trip in Washington, it's a mountain range that almost no one goes to, and it's made out of the oldest exposed rock in the world, and It was really cool. Just interesting.
And when was this? Last weekend?
2 or 3 weeks ago. I just got back from Yosemite, guiding one of our trips from last weekend, and then we did Mount Baker and the Olympics the 2 weeks before that. So. Been a busy summer,
It sounds like a pretty nice life.
It's not terrible, yeah.
So
how to make it look sexy, most of my time spent marketing, that's like the entrepreneur journey, so.
And your wife helps you with this?
So she's actually an orthopedic surgeon, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I get a lot of people who are like, how do I do what you do?
She was a Marine.
Yeah.
And then she went into orthopedic surgery?
Yeah.
What'd she do in the Marine Corps?
She's pretty low-key. She was a commo Yeah, so she deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. I'd be like flying around the Western Pacific, like, oh, I think we're pulling into Thailand next week. She's like, mm-hmm. Yep, I can't tell you anything I'm doing because it's all secret. But
Sounds great. I'm still in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is all you.
Well, I've got a couple partners. We've got about 26 guides who are all business professionals who guide for us part-time. So we've got a great team, and people all the time ask, like, well, how do I get into mountain guiding? Like, how do I do what you do? And I'm like, yeah, first step, you got to marry a doctor. Yeah, so it's definitely not all me. I get a lot of support.
But I mean, it sounds like, to do that, you have to do a lot of marketing.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people at the club that have been in kind of an adventure guide in different ways,
Yeah.
And you're always looking for the next trip, right? So yeah. So
It's the fun part of the trip. The whole job is like, I wonder if that would go. We on-site trips a lot, meaning like as a guide, you show up and you've never done it before, and clients either
you
love
tell
or hate
people?
it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
This is my first time.
They're like, this is amazing. Did you see it last time you were here? I'm like,
Never been
the
here.
First time I've been here too, buddy. And some people are like, that's so cool, and some people are like, really?
That reminds me. You ever watch that movie Captain Ron?
No.
You never seen Captain Ron?
I don't think so. Should we
That's
watch
Captain
it?
Ron right there.
Yeah.
Like we'll be fine.
Yeah,
Let's go for it.
fine. Yeah.
That's pretty cool though. That's how
the fun of it.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You go and seek adversity. I mean, this is the Adventurers Club. You all know this. That is what makes life exciting. It's not knowing all the answers and going and doing a script. It's, I wonder what this is going to be like. What's around the corner? How far is camp really?
Has that ever bitten you? Have you ever been on sighting and been like, this was a mistake?
Yeah, we bit off more than we could chew in the Olympics. We had like a 17-mile route, and it rained all week.
And you couldn't make that like a 7-mile route. Like you had to.
So yeah, my business partner is great at negotiating, and we just read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Great book if you're into negotiating. So she went and pulled some of those techniques on like a camper, unwitting camper, like at the intermediary camp, and we got a campsite there with them because we weren't going to make another 7 miles that day. People were pretty worked.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like what 17 miles in a day?
No, over the weekend. Yeah.
Okay, over the weekend.
We would have had like another 5 miles probably. Yeah.
Do you have trouble with the places you go, like finding space to camp, or is it mostly backcountry?
Yeah, it's mostly backcountry. Yeah, we try to get out of, like Joshua True, we backpack into the wilderness. It's just better for conversations and sitting in a crowded campground. And these places, the wild spaces are getting really crowded.
Mm-hmm.
I think like millions of people. I think 8 million people a year visit the Smokies. Most of them stay on the road. That's the fortunate thing for us. But,
right.
I think people are better off spending time outside. So there's kind of a tension. Like, I'm like, you should get outside, but not where we go.
I mean, that kind of ties back into, the concept of leave no trace, right? An impacted site is impacted, and it's great if it's set up to be impacted, but if it's not set up to handle that traffic,
right,
you're causing more damage.
Right.
So how do you find these new sites that are tell us your secrets. You got some secret sites that we should go to?
Yeah, I got a secret.
And ruin for you?
I got a secret for you. Whatever's open in the permit system.
That's it?
No, I mean, we find places, we track trips, and we're like, this is a great spot. But honestly, the Olympics, like 2 of the best campsites I've ever been in my life. And I was just like, well, what's open? Because things are so crowded now. So that was 6 months before the trip that I booked those sites. And that was all that was open. So people are like, how'd you find these sites? I'm like, well, nothing else was available. But it was on a ridge, about 4,000 feet, looking over Port Angeles. You have Canada and the Pacific Ocean on one side. You've got the North Cascades on the other side. And it's just lined up with the sun. So you sit and watch sunset, turn your chair around, watch sunrise. Just incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We have a phrase here. How do we define adventure at the Adventurers Club? One of the key things that we always say is it has to be off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when you're going out there, the places that are off the beaten path, one, they're less crowded, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes, not always, they can be the most beautiful. But sometimes the places that are most beautiful get a road built right to them.
That's true.
What do you think about that? Like you said, you were up in Yosemite. You know, Valley of the Yosemite, right?
Yeah.
You know, famous painting. But looking at Half Dome with the falls and everything, like that's probably one of the most beautiful spots. Have you ever found a spot like that you think is as equally beautiful but off the beaten path?
Yeah, you know, like the twin sister range that I just mentioned.
Uh-huh.
I hate to say it, you know, because then it becomes the beaten path.
Yeah, you're gonna ruin it.
Instagram, yeah. You got to bushwhack for miles and miles, and you know, it'll stay off the beaten path. But it was gorgeous, and what was really cool about it is it's all miniature. So, like, there's 10,000-foot mountains all around it. It's like 6,000-foot mountains, and crossing the glacier normally is like 2,000 feet of ice climbing and snow travel, and it was like 600 feet. So it's kind of like
Was this
great.
you crossing that glacier right here?
This is Mount Baker right here. Yeah, this is the trip we did 3 or 4 weeks ago. Gorgeous mountain. Yeah, everybody of course wants to climb Rainier. On top of Rainier, it looks like you're in an airplane. Like the views are not that great. Baker's 10,000 feet is just like right in the Cascades. You're looking right at Mount Shuckson, and it's just gorgeous. It's really cool.
You ever have any issues crossing glaciers with people? You ever get into a hairy situation?
Well, I was trying to think of like some crack up joke, you know, but no. I try to keep people not in a hurry. Personal trips for sure. You know, like you're walking along and the person behind you all of a sudden is like hip deep in a glacier, and you're like, ooh, okay, well, this is real. But we're pretty careful with
Are you tied together right there?
Yeah, you stay tied together on the glacier. So, because falling into a crack could be pretty catastrophic.
Deadly?
Yeah.
Where'd you learn how to do that?
A lot of guide courses, a lot of experience, practice. You know, you can just pay. Like my first course was with International Mountain Guides up in Washington State, and it was just my wife and I because we had to climb Mount Rainier for our 50 high points. But then, you know, getting certified, that was part of what I just did a couple weeks ago, like the next level. So there are lots of levels of certification in the American Mountain Guide Association. So yeah.
And you can take those courses, but I mean, turning that into a business is pretty unique. Like you said, a lot of people, how do I get into guiding? It's
yeah.
like, well.
Yeah. Well, and I would say we're not guiding. We're creating a container or a catalyst or experience for people to become better leaders. And so there are lots of guides out there. Like our guides have 10 plus years of leadership experience, or they've got their master's or PhD in leadership or org psych or something like that. And then they love going outside. So we help them get certified in wilderness medicine and get them the certifications to take people on glaciers and things like that. Because it's not, you know, you can get a guided trip, and those are awesome too. Usually that's just moving people up the mountain and then moving them down.
Why do you think people do those trips? You know, like, if I was thinking I was going someplace, do you think they're just peak bagging, for lack of a better term? Why do you think people do those guided trips as opposed to one that, the objective of one of your trips is clearly like self-reflection and self-improvement and growth and leadership?
Right.
So why do people do the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, you might not need it. Maybe you're not leading people. I think people don't, it's hard for people to think about outdoor adventure and high-end leadership development. We think about like ropes courses, and the amount of times people are like, oh, so you do like ropes courses? And I'm like, no, we climb mountains. Like, yes, we're roped up. We do trust falls, but they're from 100 feet on a rope. I don't think we just
You do 100-foot trust falls?
Yeah.
Like they're slack for 100 feet?
No.
Come on.
No.
Oh, I think no, there it is.
you are. No, you're 100 feet up.
Right.
When you let go, to get lowered. I'm joking when I say
How far do you let them fall?
No, I don't.
Like 3 feet?
No.
They let them fall a little bit, right? There's a little bit of slack.
Maybe a
Or do they take tension? You don't let them ease into the seat, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you let them ease into the seat?
I try to keep it safe.
Yeah?
Yeah. If they get injured, I got to carry them out, Let's be real.
So let's talk about some of that. So obviously you carry insurance, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And what does it look like? Well, first of all, have you ever had someone injured where you had to evac them? Like you had to make the call?
Knock on wood, like we've been pretty safe.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. No, not yet. We've taken almost 300 people out now, and we've been pretty safe. Like
And-
twisted ankles. We had someone with like a 50-pound pack just fall face forward.
Didn't catch themselves.
It was a heroic effort of that like slow motion trying to catch themselves.
And you're just
20 feet down a bank, and that was recent. I was like, okay, this is it. Like we're gonna have to call a helicopter. They got up, laughed. We sat them back down. Like we're gonna have to look and make sure you're okay.
yeah. Let's do the concussion.
Yeah, exactly. Like what's your name right now? They're okay.
So what is your protocol for evac?
Yeah.
Like where you go?
So we all have wilderness first responder training. So that's kind of the baseline for how to take care of people, stabilize injuries, and get them out. So it just depends on the injury. We take beacons out and everything, so we could call a helicopter, but most of the time you don't need to do that.
What kind of beacons you guys use?
Yeah, InReach Mini, Garmin.
The InReach?
Yep.
Does that come with insurance? Do you have to up your insurance level? Because I've got one of those and I have insurance to pull myself out. But imagine if you got
I think
7
we'd
people.
have to. Well, our insurance would pay for it, but not through Garmin.
And what does that insurance look like, if you don't mind me asking? Like, is that pricey? You're like, yeah, I'm gonna take a bunch of super green people out and push them beyond what they can handle.
Yeah, we're just gonna try to make them uncomfortable.
Right.
We let them get lost in Joshua Tree often.
But there's an insurance company that is writing you a policy.
It's probably 10 times as expensive as like general liability insurance.
10 times.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
It's quite a bit. Yeah. Because when I first asked, they're like, "Oh, here's what it would cost." I'm like, "Great, that's amazing," but that was like the normal price. And then we had the conversation about what we were doing. And they're like, "Oh no, this is what it costs." I'm like, "Okay, great."
So you're focused on 2-day trips. So basically a weekend, right? So someone doesn't have to take a week off.
Right.
Do you ever do longer trips?
Yeah, if people want to customize trips, we took a 5-day trip on Catalina. For me, it was incredible. I think people got pretty worked. It was long. But we did most of the Trans-Catalina Trail, backpacking, and then getting sea kayaks and sea kayak back down the coast. So it was pretty incredible. But
that's pretty cool. There's some logistics involved in that. You have to have sea kayaks preset at the wherever you're going to stop. So you did most of it.
There's a picture of it right there. It's a layup. Like off the beaten path wouldn't qualify for this. The outfitter was incredible, easy to work with. The campsites are amazing. So if people here are interested, hit me up. It's pretty easy to put together, actually.
I've always wanted to do that trail. What is it like? I feel like it's like 20.
I think it's like 35 or something total.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
We didn't do all of it, but the Two Harbors to Little Harbor is definitely the best part. I haven't done Parsons Landing, but
okay. Parsons Landing is the.
That's kind of the northern tip, which I hear is also really nice.
We forget about Catalina Island. It's right there.
Right there.
Yeah. So where do you guys take out of Dana Point or Long Beach?
Usually out of San Pedro.
Okay.
Yeah, because we go right to Two Harbors, and that's the easiest one to do it from.
So you're up here all the time. You should be based in LA, not San Diego.
Yeah,
San Diego,
San Diego's all right.
It's a pretty cool spot.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
That's cool. So this is you guys sea kayaking. So that sounds like a pretty fun trip. And that was 5 days.
Yeah.
What does your wife say about this? When you got a 10-month-old and a 4-year-old, and she's got, I'm assuming, surgeries to do, and you're like, I'm going to go to Catalina for 5 days.
Yeah.
Have fun, work trip.
Yeah. Well, and I layer on, and my mother will come help watch the kids. That's like the cherry on top, right?
That helps.
She's super supportive, and I think it's a give and take, because she's in residency, so she has long days. For med school, I would have her one kid at that time for like 6 weeks straight.
So when you're back home, you're taking over the kids, and then...
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with the kids too, but...
Did you get a nice break?
I get a nice break, yeah.
Almost every weekend,
I gotta
probably,
say,
right?
I'm so excited on an adventure to get sleep. I'm like, I get to sleep all
Some
the way
of the
through
best
night.
sleep I get is on a thermarest on the rocks, yeah.
Yes, but I don't say that at home.
Did you ever think, I've had this thought a couple times. I take my kids camping, and I'm just thinking in my head, y'all are ruining this for me. This is my happy spot, and you're ruining.
Yeah, seriously. When they're like trying to eat the campfire, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's not. If you take the kids camping, it's about them. You know,
Yeah.
It's not about you at that point. You just got to let go of it.
Do you find yourself pulling your leadership academy moves on your kids when they're camping?
So that book I mentioned, Never Split the Difference, he talks about the late night DJ voice.
Uh-huh.
Crazy book. He's
What's the late night DJ voice?
Yeah, so you just tell people what you want them to do in a nice, low, soothing voice. You're like,
I want you to go to sleep.
I want you to go to sleep.
And stop putting dirt in my face.
Yeah, and don't feed me any more dirt.
Yeah.
And it works. It's crazy. I read that and I was like, okay, it's time to take a nap. And they're like, what? Okay. It worked. Well, it worked. Past tense.
I'm sure it's not magic. I'm sure they figured out. Yeah,
yeah, they're like, okay, whatever, Dad.
Yeah, you're getting that voice again. I don't care.
Yeah. No, I think I've learned a lot about leadership from them because they're just not rational creatures, and you have to be really patient.
Well, everybody still has that lizard brain as an adult, right?
Yeah.
And that drives a lot of what they're doing. With kids, it's unmasked, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's just how they're operating.
Yeah.
So there's no filter, so you're kind of seeing what the underlying driving forces behind all the weird actions.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to react to the situation with too, but we're in public, so I'm not going to scream.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're still screaming inside, right?
Inside, oh yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. No, but they give you a lot of patience, I think. That's the biggest thing.
That's cool. So what's your next trip?
Next trip, oh man. My partners are going to do Boundary Waters in Minnesota. So I'm actually pretty excited to be home with the family for a month. I've been gone way too much. And then we're going to East Coast. So we're doing a big climbing trip with a company out there in the New River Gorge. And then we got Joshua Tree and Catalina. Those are kind of two staples back here.
Do you have some open trips people can sign up for? Open enrollment?
We got Joshua Tree, Catalina, both coming up. Shenandoah. Gosh, I can't even remember them all. There's a lot.
That's pretty cool.
It's a burden. It's really.
I mean, it sounds like a great burden. I've got a ton of trips. Anybody who wants to come, open enrollment.
Come camp with me.
So what we like to do here, we like to open this up to the audience for questions and such. So I'm sure there's some people out there that want to know more. Raise your hand.
Captain Rich.
It's Captain Rich Abley.
Yeah, Rich Abley, 1172. What are some of the typical comments you've received from some of your clients that have successfully gone out on some of your adventures? What's the typical feedback you've received?
Yeah, so a couple of things we do. We share appreciations. It sounds kind of hokey, but we know that gives us emotional energy, and we know leaders don't do it enough. Like, I'm included in that. So I think people enjoyed that, practicing. Just in Yosemite, one of the people in appreciation said, this is the first 48-hour period that I haven't used my cell phone in as long as I can remember. And that's a big thing. Our cell phones are not good for us. So that's a big thing. People are blown away by how fast people who don't know each other at all become community and really forge deep bonds. I think through just by nature of being in nature, but also that shared adversity. So people create these really meaningful relationships with other people they'd never met before. And they also share, like, why am I not talking about my core values with people at work or my family? Like, why don't we have these conversations? We're very topical as a society. So those are some. I can think more, but thank you.
Did you ever make it to Top Whitney?
Yeah. So I tried 2 more times, and then the 4th time we ended up skiing Mount Whitney. So it's been a good journey. I'm hoping to rock climb it. There's a route that goes up the face that's pretty approachable.
Mountaineers route.
Well, we skied the Mountaineers route.
You skied it?
Yeah. We left our skis like at the base of the crazy top part, but yeah, it's great skiing if you can get up there. But you can climb up the face of it too. It's like a
Cross-country skis telemarking down or full downhill rig?
Yeah, backcountry skiing. So you can free the heel up and slide up with skins and then transition into basically downhill skis. Yeah.
So you didn't do teleskiing on the way down. You just clipped back in.
Yeah, just clip back in.
Yeah.
I was impressed before.
Even for rotary guys.
I'm Steve. I'm member number 1129. I have a question from our YouTube audience. Captain Jim wants to know, for your Catalina trip, did you take a sailboat over to the island or do you take the ferry?
Yeah, we take the ferry.
Would have been cooler if you took a sailboat.
Way cooler. But that would take the whole weekend, you know?
It does take a, but I don't know. It doesn't take too long. Does anybody know? Is it like a 4-hour transit?
It's 26 miles, and depending on the wind,
5-hour transit?
that's optimistic.
2
Or you got a
hours?
big boat.
2 hours.
Most sailboats don't go 13 knots.
No, sailboats, I thought you were talking no,
Yeah, I know.
it's about a 5-hour trip over there.
Yeah, 5.
Depending on where
Coming
you're
back's
going.
longer, right?
Yeah.
No, I think coming back's easier. You're on beam reach.
That's 5 hours for you. It would be like 3 months for me. What are you doing? I have to learn how to sail.
You need to learn how to sail.
I do.
You got to get
Coming
that one
from
under
the
your
boat
belt.
school,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You didn't learn to sail at Annapolis? Where was I? I was teaching sailing out there.
Yeah.
We had a great sailing program. I don't know if you were aware of it.
Yeah, I
But-
saw it.
Yeah, it was always there.
Yeah, it was always there.
Background of every parade.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a lot of sailboats.
One of my good friends was on the sailing team, so.
Who's that?
Greg Storer.
Oh yeah, fantastic sailor.
Yeah.
That guy grew up sailing,
Yeah.
like as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I learned how to sail at Annapolis.
Yeah. No,
He went to Annapolis to
Yeah.
sail some more, which is crazy. Anyway,
Nice. That's cool.
So what does a typical trip cost if it's like a weekend trip versus a 5-day trip?
Yeah, so for a company, I think we charge $12,000 for up to 10 people, and for individuals, right now it's $800, but that's just because we're a new company. So starting in January, it'll be $1,600. So yeah,
so get in now.
get in now.
Half price till January,
Half price.
as you help them explore new places, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's been a lot of just learning.
How long does it usually take you to prepare for a trip, or how far ahead do you plan for a trip, or what was the longest you planned for a trip?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on if we've ever been there before. And there's a lot that goes into a trip that wouldn't normally go into it, like insurance, getting commercial use authorizations. You have to, the land managers, the national park, whatever, has to vet us and make sure that we actually can keep people safe and guide competently. So for a new place, it's like 6 to 8 months. But like going to Joshua Tree takes like 2 weeks of prep. And most of that's like prepping curriculum and lessons for leadership. Like we've got checklists, which is, coming from the pilot world, we just do checklists, but it's so nice. You just boom, boom, boom. I have all the stuff. I've prepped all the things. I've loaded all the lessons. So the checklists help a lot. Used to take much, much longer.
And I assume you revise and update the checklist based on feedback and experience?
Every trip, yeah, we spend every night, our guides debrief, and after every trip we debrief, and then we take lessons learned and roll them right in, so, yeah.
Back, Ray.
Press.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Do you have your own unique observations or insights to leadership that you've come upon yourself that you wouldn't have read in a book or from a motivational speaker?
Great question. So our curriculum at Cairn Leadership is based on the books because there's no this is Knight's 10-step leadership program or Cairn Leadership's 5 keys to leadership, because it just doesn't work. That's the insight. It's going to change from day to day, from situation to situation with different people. The way, if I had a conversation with you about communication today and we had the same conversation in a year, you take different things away from it. And I think that's important. Anytime I say I know leadership, or I know exactly how to lead, I've never seen a great leader say they were a good leader. All the great leaders are I'm still learning. I've got 20 books that I'm trying to read and figure out right now. So I don't know that that actually answers your question.
Well, that's helpful. Something I haven't heard before.
But yeah, I think like you might hear something from a motivational speaker and you're like, that's really useful, and make it your own, but you got to make it your own.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
So I haven't fully formulated my question, but it's about trying to lead those people that haven't yet bought into the team.
Yeah.
You know, it's very easy to lead people that are already on board with the program, but those people that are not, we used to say, not trainable, or, you know, how do you lead the untrainable?
Yeah, in the context of the outdoors, like when we take a team out, there's a lot of fear, right? If we're taking a team, there's usually the executive, the company owner's like, I'm gonna treat people to a rock climbing experience. And they go back to the office, you know, they sign a contract, they go back to the office and they're like, we're gonna go rock climbing next month. And everybody's like, what? Are you serious? So a lot of it's just talking to people in that case, right? So we build in like an hour-long Zoom call, get on the computer and just tell them like, here's the safety gear that you're gonna have. Here's the caliber of guides. Here's what's expected. Here are the goals. I think that helps a lot. I think sometimes you get people who are nervous about the outdoors in general. And what makes what we do really powerful is that we have this shared adversity. So you kind of have to gel with the team, at least for that time outside. And that's powerful for, you know, if there's a team member who isn't really doing what they need to be doing, it's not like, well, we're not going to make sales quota this month or whatever. It's like, we might die from cold. Not really, like we're going to keep them safe, but that's what they feel is like, we might die if Knight doesn't pull his weight. And so teams kind of have those conversations a lot more quickly, a lot more directly. And then with a good facilitator, you can say, well, how can you do that in the business too? Like, how can you do that on Monday? But yeah, it's one we keep talking about. We've been in this vein of psychological safety. Dr. Amy Edmondson found this in her research. It's the feeling of being safe with interpersonal risk on a team. And what she says is having psychological safety is like taking the brakes off. Having high standards is like hitting the gas. And there's some tension there that's really hard. Because if you have a low performer, someone who just doesn't get it, you want to make it psychologically safe so they can learn. And also at some point you have to get rid of them. You have to put the right people in the right seats. That's the hard thing for leaders, right? It's one that I struggle with all the time. It's like, am I doing enough as a leader? Am I giving them the right opportunities? Am I matching their strengths with the job? Or are they just not fit to be here?
So have you ever had to exclude someone from a trip for any reason? Or did anybody ever unsuccessfully complete a trip? Like, in other words, they walked away and everybody on the team was like,
They bailed out.
we need to get rid of, you know, whoever. Like,
So I'm talking, I was on a call with an organization on the East Coast. I won't name the organization. And I always joke about this. I'm like, yeah, one of our KPIs is 80% of our people come back every time. So as long as you only have 4 people, like you pretty much, we're going to get you back. And this guy's like, oh, do we get to choose the 20%? I was like, oh, I was kidding. He was kidding too, to be fair. But no, you know, everybody sticks through it. I think one of the things we do in the beginning is we have like a team charter. We talk about like how do we want to show up as a group with the intent to become better leaders, and people throw out things like be vulnerable, trust, support each other, challenge each other, have fun. Like those 5 almost invariably get on that board that we write. Things like stay together. And so teams just go back to that. You know, if someone's like, I don't think I can make it to the top of the mountain, well, you're going to learn a lot more about leadership if you have to decide as a group, we're going to go down and not summit, than if we just say like, well, we'll send one guide with this person who's weak and everybody else will go to the summit. Like, that's not leadership.
has that ever been suggested?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever been
The
like,
person who wants to turn around suggests it.
they say, you guys go on
Of
and I'll
course.
stay back. But then
Of course.
nobody takes them up. Or
But
nobody's
they-
like, why don't you stay here and we'll go.
Yeah, but and everybody learns a lot because that person a lot of times is really strong in their work. Like they're very smart or at a high level of leadership. It's just people get to 10,000 feet in the Sierras and it just impacts us differently. Maybe they're not used to elevation, whatever. And so asking for help on their part is a huge leadership lesson. And then not having that summit fever, go right back to the summit fever, right?
Right.
Is a huge leadership lesson for the other people. So, yeah, I think turning around is one of the most powerful lessons that we have out there.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, you wouldn't think that, if you're talking to a CEO and selling them the package, you're like, we're going to, your team's going to climb a mountain.
Yeah.
It's like, but low key, the best experience you're going to get if your team does not make it to the top,
Yeah.
and your team decides together that they're going to turn around.
Yeah.
That's the best outcome for you guys.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's what you're saying to yourself in your head?
Totally.
That's going to be the best outcome.
But probably. There are lots of outcomes. I would say also, when one person says they want to turn around, other people may not say that, but they probably do too.
Right.
It's like driving rain.
Sure.
Or there's some risk that, yeah, we could keep going, but like we just tried to climb Shasta. We had to turn around in June, and it was just white out. Like 50-mile-an-hour winds, complete whiteout. And the other guide and I were like, well, we probably should turn around. Everybody's like, yep. Let's do it.
But none of the group said it? You guys had to make the call? That's a tough
none
group.
of the group said it. Yeah, no, they were super tough.
Yeah.
They were after it.
That's interesting. Any other questions out there? One more.
From the chat.
Yeah, this next one comes from the chat, from Captain Jim. I suppose you've had the majority of your participants have a breakdown that they were able to transition to break through. Have there ever been participants who got stuck in breakdown?
Ooh, great question. No, I'd say our guides and facilitators are very good at managing that space. Like that's what we do. So people don't get stuck there. And I'd say the growth continues, right? Like you have the breakdown, you have the breakthrough. It's not like a one and done. We offer coaching like every month after that, and that's really where the growth is. So even if they did, we would stick with them until they worked through it.
Have you considered any other type of extreme adventure as part of the leadership experience, such as river rafting, bungee jumping, or jumping out of a perfectly good airplane?
That's crazy, jumping out of a
Or a helicopter.
I can't do it as a pilot. Yes, actually, we're gonna do our first whitewater rafting trip in October. So we're quite open. We actually tried to do fat tire e-bikes in Anza Borrego. Couldn't sell it, which blew my mind. I mean, I had to go scout it out and do it for a day with one of my guides. It was awesome. It was just like
fat tire e-bikes, huh?
Yeah, you can't like not having an e-bike is just so hard because it's very deep
sandy.
Sand.
Yeah.
And I'm not an e-bike person, but it was very fun.
Anza Borrego is beautiful in the springtime.
Yeah,
when it flowers. Yeah.
It was gorgeous. But so yeah, definitely we're always looking for more adventures. Bungee jumping, I have to run it by our insurance folks. I don't know. But
I feel like that's a known quantity.
I guess.
Very easy to figure out.
How do you test the cord though? I don't know.
It's more about the statistics.
Yeah.
They don't care about your cord as much as they care about every cord.
Yeah. Okay, you talked me out of it.
All right, any other questions out there? Bernie?
Do you do anything internationally, or is it just within the United States?
Yeah, that's something we're exploring potentially in the next couple of years. Someone was asking the highest, I think Ray was asking the highest peak I've climbed is Pico de Orizaba in Mexico, which would be a great trip. But we have so many treasures here in the U.S. It's hard to warrant the extra travel and logistics to go international yet. Yeah.
All right, one more question from Bobby. Last question.
Sorry, missed it there, Bobby.
What do you consider the most important factor when it comes to going on any of these trips? Or do you think there's more than one factor about all these?
Great question. The most important factor to me is the people, for sure. And professionally, it's we get great people. Cool people opt into climbing mountains for professional development. So always we get these amazing communities on the trips, and they're like, this is the coolest group you've ever taken out, right? And we're like, yeah, definitely, this week. But personally, like my business partner and two of my guides did a trip that went wrong, and it turned into a 30-hour epic rock climbing up in Washington State. And it wasn't like wrong, unsafe, like no one got hurt or anything. It was just like 30 hours of moving through the mountains straight. And no one complained. We all had fun. We all helped each other out. So I think really thinking about who am I going with? Is it the person who's got the summit fever and may not be safe if summiting or not comes into question? Or is it the person that's going to have a good time no matter what? Whether it's really hard or whether you have to turn around because there's a thunderstorm and you can't even try for the summit. So I think just being very careful about who I choose to go out with.
It's pretty important.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Knight, thank you for coming by. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you coming to share your stories and everything. And what's your website, by the way?
Yeah, cairnleadership.com, CAIRN leadership.com. It's little stacks of stones that help get you where you need to go when the trail's not clear.
Right. We'll definitely post that in the description of this video so people can find it.
Awesome.
Thank you all for watching out there. Join us every week at the Adventures Club of Los Angeles. And if you're in LA, definitely check out our website and come by in person. So we'll see you all next week.